Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to the Choose channel. I appreciate you all for joining tonight. I'm going to introduce our guest, and I'm going to just bring up something here real quick. Hi, Jesse. I had to bring up the chat so I could see it. So this is just going to be really informal. It's going to be a conversation, and for the viewers, you can pop in at any point in time if you have questions or comments, anything like that. Hi, Dorothy. Hi, Crystal. So let me first introduce Beth. I'm so happy that I've gotten to virtually meet Beth, and I cannot wait for April to actually get to meet her in person. Hi, Chuck. Beth is a devoted mom, caring wife, and a dedicated special education teacher. And this isn't in here, but she's also a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful friend. At 31, she faced a life-changing diagnosis that led to crucial surgery for her. This pivotal moment sparked a 2-year journey of self-discovery. Beth embraced positivity and found joy in small moments, leading to inner peace. By changing her mindset, she discovered fulfillment and a newfound purpose in uplifting others. Beth believes in filling metaphorical buckets to nourish the soul and is committed to sharing her uplifting perspective. Her experiences not only shaped her personal journey, but also influenced her teaching approach. Beth's resilience, compassion, and unwavering optimism guide her, making a meaningful impact on her students' lives and her friends' lives. Beth Battisti's story is a testament to the transformative power of positivity and resilience, a message she continues to embody and share with the world. Get ready to be inspired by Beth's unwavering pursuit of joy and the profound impact it has on those around her. So without further ado, let me bring on Beth. Hello. Thank you for joining us tonight. I always love talking to you and being able to share you with not only our TikTok friends, but some of my other areas of life is absolutely amazing. So
thank you for having me. This is exciting. I don't get to share this aspect much, like on a one-on-one setting where we really get to talk about it. So I'm pretty hyped about this.
Before we get started, I'm just going to show a couple of the comments. Crystal says she loves you so much. She's an amazing person, and she's been so helpful with my hysterectomy too. And then Jesse said that was an amazing intro. Dorothy says hi. Chuck is someone from a decorators community. So, and if you're coming up as Facebook user, if I haven't said your name, if you can go to like the instructions down here, go to streamyard.com/Facebook. The app has to have permission to show your name. Otherwise, I won't know who you are. So Beth, tell me, the first time I heard of bucket fillers was when you and some of the other people took the weekend trip, and you just spent all weekend filling everyone's buckets. And it was so amazing. It made everyone feel so good. And it's a testament of the power of how gratitude and spreading kindness and positivity just has a ripple effect and makes everything bigger. So tell us a little bit about this, and I'll just give you the floor.
Well, so bucket filling I didn't have a name for bucket filling, but when my life changed a little over 6 years ago, I noticed I lived in this path of I was not happy for other people. It was easier for me to really talk down about them and really be like, that's just ridiculous. Or why would they do something like that? Nobody wants, for example, some friends did something like a Tough Mudder, a big obstacle course. And I'm like, why would you do that for fun? That's ridiculous. And the truth was my body wasn't able to do that. And I was really jealous. And I was just living this kind of like miserable life of not being able to fill my own bucket because I was too busy dipping from other people's buckets. And that concept came from, have you filled a bucket today? It's actually a children's book that I was subbing in a classroom at the time, and it was left to read to the students and do an assignment with. They had to make a little note to put into somebody's bucket. And I read a page in here, and it said something along the lines, like I have the page marked because I go back to it all the time. And in the book, I just like read the page, and it said, you never fill your own bucket when you dip into somebody else's bucket. And it was this aha moment. And these children were sitting here writing positive things, and they were specific positive things that their teachers had really instilled into them to say, hey, we don't just say, I like your hair today. Why do you like their hair? What is it about their hair? So they were writing these like very detailed compliments and things to fill other people's buckets. And it was the most joyful experience that I'd ever had in a classroom at that point in time. And I walked away that day. I didn't know that I was sick at the time. I knew that I didn't feel good. I knew that I was miserable. And school ended. And within 3 weeks, I was told, hey, this is it for you. Like, we don't think there's anything you can do that we can do for you. And it was like in that moment, in that day where I was like fighting to find a doctor that would help me, I found myself dipping from somebody else's bucket. And I turned around, and sadly enough, it was a family member. And I turned around and I said, you know what? You have been here through thick and thin, and I am just being nasty, but this is what I like about you. And I made this list, and it was like that you're compassionate. And I was very specific about how I knew they were compassionate. And I just started to feel better. And in that moment, my positivity kind of, it just broke through. And I was like, you know, you're going to find a doctor and you're going to find a way through this. And that was just, it changed the entire trajectory of my thinking process, of my healing. And I didn't know that that was possible. And after I had my surgery, I felt so good. And I was like, you know what? I can't keep this to myself. Like, we got to keep filling buckets. So I would find random people that just looked like they were having a bad day. And it was like, you know what? I love that sweater. It looks so good on you. And it was something genuine that I really loved. And we would start a conversation about a sweater so I could learn more about people to pour into them. And it has taken off since then. And I have found this community of people who love to just pour into other people. And we've always heard of, like, you know, fill your cup and let it overflow.
Mm-hmm.
With a bucket and a dipper, it just added in that we never think about that negative aspect. What are we doing to people around us? And how does it hurt us? Like, I dipped from somebody else's bucket and it did no good for me. It exhausted me mentally.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a true transformation process to really find who I was and find the joy in really lifting other people.
I think I knew just little bits and pieces of that. And I've gotten chills as you've said that. I'm going to need you to send me the title of that book, because I'm getting books together that have messages for my new grandbaby who's going to be born in the spring.
Yes. You need this book.
I found one that is like affirmations and kind of like along the lines of choose. And so that's going to be the first book I give to her. So, and our stories now are even more like intertwined, because that's how choose came up, is when Jay was in the hospital fighting for his life and having his heart attack. And I realized that I needed to change my attitude and choose happy, choose joy, choose to fill other people up and fill my own cup too. So that just, I have chills. It's like, and an incredibly negative person and was a bucket dipper really, really bad because of trauma and health and, you know, all the things. And it truly is, you don't even realize that you're doing it necessarily until you make the conscious effort to make a change.
Well, absolutely. And I think that like metaphorical buckets, like it came from a book. But when I started this, I bought myself a little bitty bucket from the Dollar Tree. And I wish I still had it, but when we moved, it got displaced. But I bought this little bucket. And I remember I put it in my book bag and I carried it everywhere with me. And every time that I started to like go back to that negative thought process, because, you know, we have to train our brains and train ourselves to become what we want to. I would pull out this little bucket and I would sit it on my desk, my table, wherever I was, because I was substitute teaching at the time. So I was bouncing around and I was like, yeah, bucket, fill the bucket. And if you just start thinking about it, and like with the choose, you started thinking about other people. So we put these metaphorical things in place, and it's so powerful to just know, like, you can vision a bucket. You have choose and you have all these words. Like, I love my choose shirt because there's all these words and my students read them and they tie it to bucket filling often. Like when I wear my choose shirt, you'll see them on Friday, they write a sentence. that's something kind towards somebody else, and it can be anyone, their parents, their teachers, fellow students, anybody. And a lot of times they're pulling these choose words, and I'm like, stop it. I love it. So it does go, it goes hand in hand. And there's just something about it.
I have to tell you, I love that you share choose with your students and the people you work with. That fills my cup so much. When you did that, and it makes me happy, and it gives me hope that this next generation of kiddos have some of those coping mechanisms and thought processes that a lot of us didn't have, and even my kids. Maybe the world is going to be a much better place going forward.
That's my hope. That is my hope. And I honestly, if my students learn how to become fluent readers, if they become fluent in their math facts, that is wonderful. But if they leave my classroom with a bucket that is filled and they're filling
Mhm,
others, I think that's like the most rewarding aspect of anything, because we live in a society where we find it's much easier to tear people down
mhm.
in hopes to build ourselves up. And it is a miserable, and I don't think that anybody should ever have to live that way. So let's train them up early. And even as
Yes.
adults, like forming the habits, there were people that said to me 6 years ago, what's wrong with you? When I started to get this happy feeling, this confidence, this joy in helping others, they would be like, what's wrong with you? This isn't you, or that's ridiculous. Why are you happy all the time? But it's a true happiness. And I had to train
Mhm,
myself. And there are still days where I'm like, oh, why did that person do that? But then I'm like, wait, but this person did this, and this. And they didn't have the same experience in life that I did. So that
mhm,
may be their way of showing love. Who
mhm.
knows?
Right.
Um, yeah,
Crystal says, "See, she just fills you up with joy just being who she is," and that's absolutely true. And Mandy says, "Beth overfilled my cup today. She does every day." So, and that's so true, so true. Jesse wants to know, have you used the term "use your lid"? I've not
I
heard of
have
that. Have
not.
you?
No, I have not heard that term. Use
Okay,
your
Jesse,
lid.
explain.
Yes, we need more info.
Explain, please. Um, I know when I started doing this, it was before my surgery and everything, and I was making a conscious effort, and everyone was like, "You can hardly walk. How are you, being so positive?" And I'm like, "Because I have to be." We had the heart attack, then we had the vid, and then. Um, Crystal says, like, put the lid to keep out negativity.
That's a good idea.
Is
Yeah,
that
just to block out
is
that.
that what it is, Jesse? Um, and so then after surgery, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep going with this choose thing for myself. And I can tell through videos, how I was beginning to be better and mentally more um strong. Yeah. Jesse says,
Boundary.
it's the boundary that is used to keep the bucket tippers from dipping.
I like that.
I
I might have
do.
to implement that. Like now, currently, I tell my students, I'm like, listen, if somebody dips from your bucket, counteract it with kindness. That kind of kill them
Mhm,
with kindness aspect. Just counteract it with kindness, even if it takes you 3 minutes to take a few deep breaths and just
mhm.
revisit it. And I do that with people I work with all the time. I'm sorry if you're watching, but I do. I mean, sometimes I have to walk away and just be like, you know what? Maybe they didn't mean to dip for my bucket. Maybe they didn't know the difference. But I like to use your lid because we need. I'm bad at boundaries.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that. That's such a good idea.
And sometimes there are days where you wake up in a bad mood or something's not quite right. I just get, kind of icky and whatever. And my husband will now say, Can you go use that choose thing?" And he's not being mean about it.
Right?
Like, you've made a lot of progress, so maybe you should go do that. We also have the thing that before this all started was, if you're having a bad day, leave it at the door. Touch the fire extinguisher on the way in, leave it there. You can pick it up on the way out if you want to carry the weight. So that's, the early implementation of it. And now it's choosing and making the effort to choose the gratitude every day. The gratitude, even for the simplest things, tends to put me in the right mindset to choose good things.
Absolutely. Well, and you started with choose and I started to hear about choose, I have always been a gratitude forward person, because I feel like that is one way that I can continue with a positive mindset and even a growth mindset, because we get stuck and complacent in areas, but then when you start pulling the gratitude of different things, it kind of fuels you to level up, and it brings back that joy, that happiness, that positivity. So when choose was brought to my attention, I was like, wait, oftentimes we are choosing things like, let's put a name on it, just like a metaphorical bucket, and just kind of do it with purpose and intention and gratitude. Now when I list out my things, I often try to choose something at work that I have that I'm grateful for, and then whatever that is, if it's a person or something they did, there's a little note that comes with it, because that's filling a bucket. And I noticed the other day I was really frustrated with some actions of someone, not with the person themselves, but the actions. And the actions weren't all their fault. It was direction given by someone else. They were just kind of taken a little further. But there were so many positive things about this person, and I was letting those actions kind of dip from my bucket. So I took the time to write the note, dropped it off on a desk, and then Friday in the afternoon, I get somebody running up to me to hug me. And sometimes I'm a hugger, sometimes I'm not, but it was a long day. And I was just like, whoa, whoa. But it was like that moment. She was like, I never meant to upset you or anything. And then when I upset you, I didn't know what to think about it. And I was like, was I upset? And she was like, well, you didn't say good morning. And I was like, okay. So I dipped from her bucket by not saying good morning, but when I was doing my list of gratitudes, just making that note to share with somebody, to say, hey, you are the reason that I'm feeling great today, or you're the reason that I'm smiling today, or I had less to do. And that was my thing, was she took 4 things off my checklist, and I was very grateful for that.
And that's incredible. I'm going to pop a couple comments up here. Jesse says, when you consciously train yourself to stop and think through a situation as soon as you feel the hurt, pain, or anger from a painful, embarrassing, or otherwise unpleasant situation, you will be able to prevent your bucket from being dipped. And that's absolutely the truth.
100%.
Crystal, I'm still sticking with that word you gave me, Beth. It's really helping me stay strong while I wait for a reply. You're such an amazing and strong person. Thanks for letting me have a dip of positivity.
Crystal, stop it. I mean, but really, so Crystal and Jesse and all of these people in our community, you think about it, and I don't know if they had put a label on the fact that they were filling buckets, but I had just started putting that out where I'm like, you filled my bucket. And people were like, you mean your cup's overflowing? Same thing. Just in my world, it's a bucket. But we have so many people, and like the weekend that you were speaking about that we went and these videos just started happening. It was you, I don't know why it gets me in my feels still to this day, but when you posted that you were moving back upstairs in your house, I was like, I could not imagine the moment that I was free to be able to move back upstairs in my house, like that feeling that you had to have. And it didn't, there was no bat of an eyelash when I said, Tanya's moving back upstairs in her house. Let's make her a video. We're all together. And then it just trickled from there, because not only do we feel good, we know, and Jackie and Mandy and Nasa and Madison and Alyssa that were there, they're the definition of a bucket filler on a daily basis. It's just surrounding yourself with people that really have that same mindset. Yeah, we're all going to have bad days, but we're here for each other, and it's okay to have a bad day and lean on somebody else.
Mandy cried like a baby when she made that video. I did too. And sometimes during this journey, I haven't realized when I've been doing something until it's over, and then I'll get in my feels and I'll cry like a little bee.
Yeah. Don't we all at some point in time?
And Jay's like, why are you crying? I'm like, because I'm happy. Or else he's like, oh my gosh, you're like a kid in a candy store. Just every little thing I was like celebrating. Because I'm like, you need to celebrate every little thing. It has to happen because it's important, those victories. I never imagined being 14 months out of having weight loss surgery that I would be exercising and running up and down stairs and climbing ladders and signing up for a Tough Mudder. I never imagined that for my life. I had kind of given up. And I'm happy to have my life back. And now this whole community of people that I've either met or live in my computer or my phone, and I will meet one day.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that you're talking about meeting one day. I think that kind of bucket filling has like determined how my next year is going to go. I have places I want to go, people I want to see. Um, but I would have never had that had I stayed in that. It didn't matter if I lost the weight or not. Stayed in the negative state. I could have went and met all the people, but there would not have been a relationship because I would be thinking about what did they have that was better than me? What did they do better than me? And how could I take away from it? And it makes me sad that I lived in that world. I'm just very grateful. Like, I think everything happens for a reason. And I am grateful that I am alive. And I am grateful that I had the experience that really sent me on this path. That not only, like on TikTok, we have this big family. And I feel like when somebody's having a bad day, we can change that day for them by just filling their bucket. But it happens at work. And I've had the honor of actually doing a professional development in regards to bucket filling and bucket dipping, and how do you implement that for better classroom management. And that I never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be that person that is sitting here telling people to be positive and have a growth mindset and to be kind to people. So it is crazy. And I'm glad that you celebrate every success, because we were just talking about that at work. And like being in the special education field, success looks different. And if you read one word today, yes, it's one word, and you should be reading 140 words by some standard somewhere that somebody put out. But you read one word, and instead of saying, oh, you didn't do it today, no, you did it. It's and I think that has helped tremendously in my journey, as well as seeing that celebrating small successes. And I loved when it was Alan was his name, right? That was on here. Was that his name? Aaron. I don't know why I mixed that up, but when I just happened to pop in when he was saying celebrate the process, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, celebrate the process. Everybody should celebrate the process.
Yeah. Well, Crystal says a bucket, because that's because a cup is too small for Beth. I love that.
Too kind.
And Beth fills too many cups. She needed to upgrade to the bucket. Thank you, Mandy. She says I'm amazing too, and that she's glad to meet strangers off the internet now.
Absolutely. Maybe I need to go get a 5-gallon bucket now instead of just I have a gallon bucket in my it's a small gallon bucket in my classroom. Maybe I should go get a 5-gallon bucket.
And Crystal, I love this community so much. I started to get to know Sherry, and then I met the rest of you. My heart is absolutely filled with love and support. You all have made my life so much better. And that's just it. Surrounding yourself with positive, like-minded people, like Erin and Kylene. They're in my mastermind class. Actually, Erin is the facilitator, and Kylene is my yoga instructor. And I do the wellness toolbox with her on Wednesday mornings on our podcast. So we're always talking about these awesome tools and things like that, but you can also live them and talk to them. And not that everyone's welcome in my life, but if you dip from my bucket too many times, I'm going to put you at arm's length, because I need to have my positive, like-minded people that are going to lift me up, and I can lift them up, and it will be reciprocated, and not just, like my family growing up were all bucket dippers. They were all negative and stuff like that. And so it took me a long time to find my voice, because I was really, really shy, and be able to conquer that. I was well into adulthood. So
yeah. Well, and that's like Jess said, putting a lid on it. I think that having somebody at arm's length is just safe for you. It's that boundary. And we don't have to break relationships. I have a rocky, tumultuous relationship with some people in my family, and I still love them. I adore
Mhm.
them. I don't adore their actions
Yeah.
or what they speak sometimes, but just protecting yourself and knowing that their dipper doesn't belong in your bucket.
Mhm.
I think that's a very valuable lesson. And I did have somebody, I thought about this earlier today. I had actually had somebody say to me, like, how are you friends with everybody? The truth is, I am not friends with everybody. But I don't have to be nasty and
Right.
negative and dip from other people's buckets because there's nothing for me to gain from that. So even though it may seem like they're like, oh, well, we're all going to be mad at them, what does that do? Like, that does nothing for my mental health. That does nothing for my positivity. So there's
Mhm.
no reason to be mad. I can just kind of walk away and I might have a few moments of frustration and just keep living life. And I think that that goes along with that metaphorical bucket. Like, don't
Mhm.
give them my time, don't give them my energy,
Right.
and just be cordial.
Right. And if you're nasty, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And I always worry because I have grown up with such a mental health focus in my family of just not wanting to be the one thing that pushes someone over the edge and do something, make a permanent solution to a short-term problem. I think that's how that goes. Um, so I just choose to be me and put my focus where it needs to be. So
I absolutely. I think that, and I
mhm,
think that's so important because there are times I think that we have all experienced somebody being negative towards us without having any idea of what is going on behind the scenes.
mhm,
And like, I have people who tell me all the time, well, you live the perfect life, you're always happy. There have been times, like, I have struggled this year in at a time in a short period of time harder than I have ever struggled. But I had to pull myself out of that.
mhm,
And part of that was is I did let people dip from my bucket as I was pouring into other people and had nothing left to give. And it took me, I don't know, probably 30 days to realize that there needed to be a boundary.
yes,
And I was very negative during that time, but I didn't share negativity with other people. I just kind of
mhm,
went and secluded myself and was negative within myself. So there's no perfection to this, I promise. Like, I couldn't, when somebody said to me, like, you have the perfect life, I'm like, well, I have a really good life, but I promise that there are days that I have very down days. And I try to share those too. I don't want
mhm,
anybody to know that this is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like,
mhm,
there are days that I have rough times. And I think it's important to be transparent and vulnerable about those times because a lot of times on social media, TikTok, whatever it may be,
mhm.
people only show the positive moments.
And
You can tell though.
that's exactly what I tried to do, like, when I was so sick for months and months and months. I didn't wanna, like, come off as complaining, but it's like, I'm frustrated. I can't do what I need to do because of being COVID and then sinus infection and then influenza A, and I'm like, "Seriously, let's stop." And so last night when I did the MOBA challenge, and for anyone here that's watching the replay or whatever that doesn't know what MOBA is, it's Master of Badassery. It's a clothing brand, and they also were doing a MOBA challenge this month. And we do workouts sometimes on TikTok. And I was able to do the whole workout last night, and I was like pumped, just pumped. I'm back. I am back. And that was the best feeling ever. So where I kind of complained, not really complained, but shared my frustration. Um, I went on and I'm like, "Hey, I did this and I'm really proud of myself," type thing too. So that's important.
It is so important. And I have to say, Tanya, I watched you up on that live and I couldn't even tell that you had been out of the game. Like, you just got in there and you beasted that out like no other. So
The
I'm
zipper
proud of
bands,
you.
oh my gosh, I was doing them wrong. I was doing what Sherry had done, like the same side thing, and I'm like, "This is not working for me. What? Oh."
Oh my goodness.
And I think it's important too, um, to be able to laugh at yourself. Not in a
100%.
derogatory way, but when I figured that out, I'm like, "Oh, okay.
Yes.
I can fix this now." And that was kind of the way I handled when I started going live for my business, and I started doing podcasts and things like that. I tend to wing it, and it works for me, and then if I mess up or I start stuttering or whatever, I'm just like, "Okay, words are hard, let's move on." And that has made life easier for me to handle those situations, not taking myself so seriously.
What 100%. Like, and so everybody always told me when you go into, so my degree is in general education and I have an endorsement in special education and I regret nothing about it. I do not like general education. That is not for me. It's not for everybody. And special education is not for everybody. But everybody's like, if you go into special education, like your type A personality that you already have is going to shine through and it's going to be so good for the job. I have had to let go of my type A personality because special education isn't one size fits all. And there's so much on the back end, and learning to say well enough is well enough as a lead teacher
Mhm,
has been a really hard thing because my whole team relies on me.
mhm,
But that would be the best. Like when I started to laugh at myself when I made mistakes, or I would forget something, or drop the ball on something, or a lesson plan didn't fit a kiddo, is when I started to loosen up and realize that just because it didn't follow that typical plan doesn't mean it's not going to work. Doesn't mean that we can't giggle about it, but it's been healthy for the people around me too because we're
mhm.
human. No
Right.
matter how type A we are, we're human and it is okay to mess up. And I wanted to say for the longest time that I was a type A personality. I don't know if you can change your personality, but I certainly am not now. If you could see the scribble sheets that I hand in to my administrators, instead of having this typed perfect sheet with perfect grammar and not a typo, now they get scribble sheets with notes. Like,
I
here it is.
I do think that it can ebb and flow because I was always very type A as well, and especially with, and we were talking about this a little while ago, with the massive weight loss, the ADHD came to the forefront. And he's like, the psychologist was like, "You've always been ADHD." He goes, "You just were able to focus in and had coping mechanisms. And now you have all these things that you want to do. And your brain is like firing all over the place." And I'm like, "Can we rein it in a little bit? Just a little bit."
Well, and you have all this energy. Before, I think I always felt um, with ADHD as an adult and not choosing to end taking medication for and try some strategies, carrying the extra weight made me tired all the
Yeah.
time. So I could sleep it off. Now I feel like there is so much energy. It's just ping, ping, ping. And it's pinging with everything, but it's kind of fed. I don't, it's fed who, not who I have become, but who I truly am. Like it's allowed
Mhm.
me, my brain has always pinged, but nobody ever could see it ping. And now I'm just like, whatever, I'll start this and run over to the other side of the room. People will be like, do you hear what I'm saying? And I'm like, not if I look at your face, but if I'm over here writing notes about something else I do, and
Mhm.
have kind of, like, I tell people all the time, I'm a hot mess. Like if you come in here to have a conversation with me, I hear you, but I am a hot mess express. I promise. So I do think that that extra energy just feeds
Mhm.
those moments because we can.
Right. Mandy says, "I was type A until I became a mom of a special needs kiddo. Now we take one life one wave at a time." And that's absolutely true. I have a son that is has some issues, and I'm not actively involved right now. I've had to draw some boundaries, but I totally get it. Um, and Jesse, ADHD is hard as an adult. Staying on track, even in a convo, is hard. I laugh at myself often. Me too. I was having the other day, there was no way I could do any work. I couldn't design, I couldn't read my email, I couldn't do anything. So I started cleaning and organizing. My husband's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I haven't had a day that's been this much of a struggle bus for a long time. So this is what I'm doing." And he's like, "Okay, okay."
It's what works. It is,
Yeah.
and my morning chats that I put out in the morning where I'm like a hot mess and peppy, like I get out of the bed and my feet hit the floor, and if I don't hit the ground running, it's like all this energy just sits inside of me and my focus for the entire day is off. So I've decided I just hit the ground running. And usually by about 2 o'clock in the day, I can focus on one task for 30 minutes. Like I've nailed it down at 2 o'clock in the day is the most productive, like a singular task can be completed. But when you watch those morning chats and I talk about this and I look this way and I change the topic, that's what happens in my brain. Can't help it. It's just one of those things.
One thing that's worked for me, and we actually talked about it in our mastermind, it was an exercise, is sometimes I will set a timer for 5 minutes and see how much I can get done of one particular task in 5 minutes. And it's surprising how much you can get done. And then it makes me feel better about myself that, okay, I accomplished that. Now let's set another timer for 5 more minutes. And there are days, just like choosing what you need as often as you need it, sometimes it's working in 5 minute increments. And that's okay. It is absolutely okay.
You're so productive in that 5 minutes that your task is going to be done so quickly. Yeah. That is one of the strategies that we implement with kiddos in a school, especially with ADHD, is here's your timer, work through it. Here's a checklist, work through it. And when those tasks are done, then we fill a bucket and tell them how proud we are of them. Like this is a moment of you've completed this and we're going to celebrate and we're going to rest for a few minutes and start again. And it's crazy that as adults, we're finding these strategies to be so useful and helpful. And that's actually that's what made me decide that I could stop taking medication to slow my brain down a little bit, was because if I can use these strategies with kids, then why am I not using them myself? Like, where has this been? I am preaching this to children and to other teachers and saying, this is what they need. That's what I need. That's what I need.
And I've just, kind of bounced into some of the strategies, especially in the last year when things have been a little bit harder for me. And to remain positive, even in the midst of being like, oh my gosh, my brain is not working today, type thing, and to avoid that frustration. Crystal says, I have the hardest time getting myself motivated. I'm hoping it gets better once I'm back to my normal and done with recovery. Crystal, I totally believe that it will. You have gone through the ringer, girl.
Yes. And you have, but Crystal, you've got to remember like where you came from and where you are now. And like, you're out and moving. There are so many people that can say that they have had a hysterectomy. I only put that out there because you did earlier, but have had a hysterectomy and they don't move for months.
Yes.
Because they're healing and their body might need that, but you're out there walking, and making videos, filling other people's buckets. I'm just saying. Yeah. So and celebrate the little things, fill your own bucket a little bit and be like, oh, well, I walked 5 steps further today, or I walked a half a mile further. Even getting out of bed. I hurt today, but I got out of bed. Celebrate it.
Yep. I overslept, but I still got my stuff done. That was me today.
It's done. There you go. Maybe
still
you
made
needed
it work.
that.
Well, thank you, Beth, for being on here. And thank you for those that joined. This will exist on my YouTube channel as well as this page. For anyone who wants to watch it in the future, I want to make this page just like resources that are very, very helpful. And because sometimes you don't think about things that, like bucket filling and bucket dipping. And I know that for me, it's made my life a lot richer.
Well, I am so glad. And thank you for sharing Choose and allowing me to. This is the first time that I have ever done anything like this. So thank you for my maiden voyage.
Not a problem. You haven't been on Sherry's podcast?
No, because I chickened out.
Oh, well, thank you for now you can tell her you can do hers. It's very similar. And for me, it's conversations. Like we didn't have anything scripted or anything. It's like, let's just have our normal conversation. So it just happens to be people are watching.
Yes. And I was just proud of myself that I remembered to bring my book home. You filled a bucket today. Because I was like, there's this one line in this book and it is like what changed my life.
I love that. And I am going to go find that book and order it because I'll have to tell you, I have it over there somewhere. The book I got for it's actually like a whole series, and I'm gonna end up buying all of them. It's about affirmations for kiddos and how you talk to yourself. And I totally believe how you talk to yourself matters. I tell my friend Becky all the time, do not talk about my best friend like that. Do not do it.
Yeah. Well, and this says on the front of it, it's a guide to daily happiness for kids. And on my copy, I've actually marked out kids and written everyone because I
Oh,
hand it to adults sometimes. And I'm like, you need to go read this.
I
So,
love that. I absolutely
yeah.
love it. Well, thank you everyone who joined, and I'm going to end the stream right now. But if you want to share it with anyone, if you have any comments after the fact, I do receive the notifications. And if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to us. So thanks again.
Thank you.